How are we doing, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin. I know we've been doing a lot of Maiden cast recently, but we've been capitalising on this exciting news about the new Iron Maiden album. But I'm back now doing the Let's Talk About series. This series where I take a band and I go through their history and their back catalogue, an album at a time, and analysing how the band evolved. Today we are talking about a very important band from Greece. I think a band that have put out some of the most important death metal releases in recent time. I think some of the best death metal that's ever been recorded, in my humble opinion. A band that has set a new standard in death metal. They've set a new standard for new bands to measure themselves against, whilst challenging the old guard. Your Morbid Angels, your Incantations, your Immolations, and all the rest of it. They've taken those classic albums and then put two amazing albums on the table and gone, we challenged this, now you challenge this. Very great band indeed. And that is the almighty Dead Congregation. A little teaser there for you vinyl junkies out there. We'll be looking at that later on. For those that are uninitiated, sound-wise, Dead Congregation do a very dirty, raw version of death metal. Very old school in their delivery and aesthetic. I don't know if they record in an analog way, but it certainly feels like they do. If it's a band that sort of, rather than searching for that beautiful, clean production, they're worried about getting a perfect take. And that doesn't mean necessarily perfectly played. It means perfectly capturing an emotion or an atmosphere while playing. This is a band that concentrated on being tight rather than concentrating on their Facebook profile and their public profile, for example. This is a band that just concentrated on how well they played, how well they delivered the music, the live show and their recordings, and just the music in general, and then they let everything else come out later on. Incantation is a band that seems to come up in... There's so many bands in the last 5 years that are just trying to take what Incantation did. I think Incantation and maybe early Immolation is a good little indicator of how this band sound, but I don't think they actually sound like that band. In terms of, they've got their own unique style and their own little thing going on. It's just a good little indicator. And if there weren't so many bands ripping off Incantation at the moment, I probably wouldn't have been so reluctant to make that comparison. But I'm just trying to give you an idea of where we're going. But it's very dark, very raw, very dirty and dirgy sounding. It's very sorrowful, very mournful in its atmosphere, doomy in places, whilst being very blasphemous and anti-religious in tone. To give a bit of history in the band, the drummer, I'm not going to mention any names because of my limited vocabulary and terrible accent. But yeah, first indicator of where the band are going, you want to take In Veracity with Circle of Perversion. This is a classic album in the Greek death metal scene. This is a bit more like Deeds of Flesh, Suffocation. This is very brutal, very technical. Fucking cool album, mind. I'll be doing another video on this at some point. The drummer in Dead Congregation was on this album, and the guitarist on this album now plays in the band also, although he played bass in Dead Congregation, but guitar on this. The first main important thing, though, is a band called Nuclear Winter. The band's put out 3 demos at the time. In their original formation, they did 2 demos and a split, but this is the really the main important one. So this is Abomination Virgin Born. This was recently reissued on Dead Congregation's label. The vocalist and guitarist of the band, Anastasis Valtsanis, I think that is. Again, I've got a terrible pronunciation. I apologise if I've butchered it. But it's pretty much safe to say that this Nuclear Winter evolved into Dead Congregation, and this was their second demo, which, although this is the last demo of Nuclear Winter, it's the first thing that would go on to form Dead Congregation, much like the the last Celtic Frost album is the first Triptykon album, for example. Like you've got that segue from one to the other. And Dead Congregation is the title of the first song on this demo. So I think that sums up pretty much what I'm trying to say. Dead Congregation's main man, he's the owner of Nuclear Winter Records. Also, though, for Dead Congregation are on Martyrdoom Productions, which I'm assuming is also the same owner. But something's making me wonder, I'm not quite sure how that works. I think Martyrdoom is the Dead Congregation's collective label, whilst Nuclear Winter is the singer from Dead Congregation's own label. I'm not quite sure. I think they kind of merge into each other. But this was reissued recently on Martyrdoom Productions, so I think this is now officially part of the Dead Congregation canon, so to speak, and definitely worth picking up and worth getting as a what's the word? Completion piece. That's the best way to put it. Very raw, very nasty, cool driving riffs. The basis of what the band was going to come. And obviously with the opening track being Dead Congregation, you see where that's going. But yeah, really cool, very raw sounding. It's a demo at the end of the day, but very cool. Some great riffs, some great playing, and the two main players on vocals and guitar and drums would then go on to form Dead Congregation. So now we'll get into the meat of the band. This is the first EP released in 2005, and this is Purifying, Consecrated Ground. This is a fantastic EP, just as important as any of their albums. If you are a casual fan and you've only got the albums so far, I highly recommend picking this up also. Let me get this sleeve up for you so you haven't got the glare. Awesome artwork. You've got like a couple of winged demons eating some angels in some church with people kneeling watching. Kind of like in the same vein as Immolation's Dawn of Possession, but a bit more close up and a bit more nasty. You've got classic tracks on here, pummeling drums, frantic shredding riffs, melodic leads, doomy sections. So the band have always done this perfect pacing of nice and fast and nasty to slower, more melodic passages before ramping things up and making it nice and nasty before the ending of the track, ending in a nice climatic way. They're perfect balance as well between nice, longer, sort of slower pace songs to nasty short songs that are like on the 2-minute mark. So classic tracks like Vomit Christ, Lucid Curse is a fantastic track. When I saw the band live, that was actually the track that they opened with, funnily enough. I love the doomy riff at the end of that track. There's some screaming feedbacky solos. Arguing on the Eternal War goes through some different stages. The song sort of climbs as it goes, as the song develops. There's some blinding riffs in there. Yeah, really good, nasty, horrible sounding stuff in the best possible way. Like I say, the artwork just sums it up perfectly. It's very dirty, very raw, very somber, so mournful. I'm repeating the words I said at the beginning, but I think it bears repeating. The band never really changed throughout the thing. The recipe stays the same. They just tweak it here and there as they go along, just perfecting what they're trying to do. Then after that, we've got the 2005 Rehearsal. You could say a second demo, really. What have we got in here? Anything good? Got a couple of flyers. It's the future album that we'll be talking about in a couple of minutes. What I've got here is actually a reissue. I think it came out on cassette. Again, this is through Martyrdoom Productions. Just a standard black, nothing too exciting to look at. But yeah, this is a fantastic recording. I copied it onto a CD just to put in here as well. This goes to show what I mentioned earlier about the bands. Just rather than working on their public profile, the band just knuckled down and made sure they were tight and were good at playing and just great at what they do. This is a run through of 6 tracks. 5 of these 6 songs would go on to be recorded for the first album, Grave of the Archangels, and the remaining track was then re-recorded for a split EP with Hate Spawn. We'll be getting to them in a minute. But yeah, a fantastic recording, raw but clear. And yeah, you can just hear how great the band are live, and just everything you hear on record is replicated perfectly in the live setting. An essential release. And again, if you've got the albums but you haven't got anything else, the EPs and all these little nooks and crannies in between are just as essential as the albums themselves. But now we're going for the main crux of the band's back catalogue. So 2005 was that Rehearsal, and then when was the first album come out? Let's quickly look it up. 2008 was the band's debut album, and this is Graves of the Archangels. This is a death metal masterpiece and a modern day death metal classic. There's, from the opening notes to the closing, it's just fantastic from beginning to end. Martyrdoom is the opening track, which is obviously the band's record label, where you got it mainly an instrumental with a few vocal passages here and there. It's just basically a massive intro, but builds in layers. It climbs with these riffs. Boom, boom, it just builds in intensity and atmosphere. Then it just explodes it through the speakers with Hotis Humani Generis. It's just fantastic. The way it just kicks in. It's just fucking, the way it's delivered is just absolutely phenomenal. It just explodes. Like I say, it's weird, disjointed riffs. It's melodic, it's frantic, and the drums are just pummeling. I mean, in terms of the way death metal bands, they always seem to concentrate on technicality and production, but atmosphere. So many bands forget nowadays. Songwriting and atmosphere, and Dead Congregation have it in spades. It's absolutely fantastic stuff. I mean, there isn't a bad song on this. I mean, Graves of the Archangels, the title track, for example. One cool thing with this as well, again, it adds into the atmosphere and the intensity of the thing. They use like not chants, that's not quite the right word, but it's sort of Greek Orthodox priests are doing the old like monks doing the old the chanting and the singing, and they use that in the songs. That just builds the atmosphere as well. And just when it gets to that intense part, that's when the music normally kicks in. You have that on the title track, Graves of the Archangels, Subjugation, Source of Fire. I mean, it's not a very long album actually. I mean, it's only 43 minutes, so it's standard length of an album, but there's just not a note in place. I mean, I think a really great album is summed up really nicely. It shouldn't really take a lot to describe it really in terms, but everything's here. Every note is in place. Every riff, every note, you've got really cool shredding, punishing riffs, pummeling drums, but then just at the right time we go from a really fast section to a slower mid-paced groovy section to a real slow dirty section with just some fantastic solo in. I mean, the leads on these albums, on both albums, are just perfect, just melodic and beautiful, and they just take the song to that next level the way they are played. The one thing as well, the notable, Teeth into Red, the final track on this album, is just a fucking masterpiece. I'll be talking about that a little bit in a minute when I want to talk about when I saw the band live. But yeah, one of the most important death metal albums to come out in recent times. This is an absolute masterpiece, Graves of the Archangels. I think on the same year, if I'm correct, if my memory serves me, yes, 2008, the same year, the band put out a split EP with Hate Spawn. This is pretty rare to get hold of on a physical copy now. If you can track one down, I'll get the sleeve out for you so you can have a look. nice and easy, straightforward release, really. Some nice, cool artwork on the CD there. You've got basically 2 tracks by each band. 2 tracks from Dead Congregation, and then 2 by Hate Spawn. First track by Dead Congregation is Perennial Blasphemous Affliction. That is the last song that you get the original version of on the 2005 Rehearsal. So yeah, 5 of the tracks on this are re-recorded for the album, and the remaining track is on this. And you also get a slightly different mix of subjugation. There you go. I had a struggle there. I don't think this is an off-take of the album. It sounds very different to the album, so I'm thinking it was recorded at a separate time. I might be wrong, but yeah, it does feel different to me on this. But it's nice to have a studio version of it, and definitely a great little companion piece to that album, and well worth getting if you can find it. I understand it's a bit rarer nowadays. And then things went quiet for a couple of years. 2008, yeah, you have the album and the EP. And then you don't hear anything till 2014, when the band put out their second album, and to me, another masterpiece, Promulgation of the Fall. And yeah, this album is just absolutely fantastic. I mean, again, nothing really that much different in terms of what the band are doing, but in terms of quality, it couldn't be more consistent. It's what the band are known for, what the band just continue to do. You just hit that dun 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 dun, you know, again, the wall of sound just hits you. You've got this really intense opening track as what's it called? Ashes Only Remain, or something like that. Only Ashes Remain, that's it. Mind you, 5 minutes. It's pretty intense. I thought it was a lot shorter than that. And then as the song, the first 3 tracks just mould together. It just continues on. So what ends with a wall of feedback. So you just get the ringing out at the end of the track, and then just dun, 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 and then dun, dun, you know, and then you know, then that's it. You're into the second song. Then that leads into the third track, Serpent Skin. The first 3 tracks basically just go together perfectly. When I said earlier about the sort of analog recording, that's how this feels. It feels like you're listening to a band playing live in the room. The way this is recorded, it feels like the band are just playing and someone's just set a lot of microphones in the middle of the room and they're just recording a rehearsal. That's how good this production sounds. It's just fantastic. It takes that raw live, just that live feel to it. Negrido, the another punishing song, has this awesome pause in the middle with this massive solo, wall of feedback before kicking back in. But again, it has this like melodic solo and this melodic lead in the middle of it. When the solo just kicks in, it quite literally, as corny as it sounds, but it feels like demons just flying out of the speakers. It's just phenomenal. It really is fantastic. Track 7, the second from last track on this. What's it called? Schisma. Again, just reduces. It cuts back to the. Again, a very heavy, brutal track that again pauses and then sort of reduces down. It just scales down. The way the band just dismantle the song before building it back up again, it's brilliant the way they do that. A pretty simple trick really, but only a skilled band really knows how to do it. But it reduces to some like a wall of feedback to a slow climbing riff, just like a boom, boom, boom. And then when the bass kicks in, boom, 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 boom. I mean, even conjures up like old Black Sabbath recordings, you know. And then when it kicks back in, bam, it just explodes into life. And little things like that, it just adds to the atmosphere of it all. It's just absolutely phenomenal listen. And then from the Wretched Room, I said earlier about the with Graves of the Archangels, how Teeth in the Red, it kind of just pauses, and then you've got those Orthodox monks doing their sort of chants, their singing, before kicking back in again. This is very the opposite of that, actually. From the Wretched Room is quite a straightforward song, and then just kind of cuts out suddenly, and then just leaves you just sort of bewildered, thinking, well, what the hell was that? And then you have to put the album on again. And yeah, this, I'm not sure which of the two really is the better album, but these are two death metal masterpieces. I mean, both of them are just absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think they've done this album in full. I think they did an anniversary show recently where they played the album in full. You definitely need this one as well. This album flows like a live show. Each song just seeps into the next one. The whole album just flows beautifully in 40 glorious minutes of just perfectly balanced, well-crafted death metal. And yeah, this definitely needs to be done in full, and it plays like a live show, like a live rehearsal. And then to top everything off, that was in 2014, and in 2016, 2 years later, we got out just this two-track demo. Not a two-track demo, two-track EP, Somber Doom. Really cool live shot there at the back. I think that live shot sums things up pretty well in terms of atmosphere. Got the inside there. And yeah, Redemptive Immolation is a 9-minute doom epic. It's very slow, very punishing song, very atmospheric, builds up very nicely. And then the next track is a very fast, short song, Wind's Bane. So yeah, the first track is 9 minutes long, next track is just 4 minutes 36 seconds, so 13 minutes in total. But again, still a great, worthy addition to the back catalogue. I was lucky enough to see the band live in 2016 in Nambucca in London. I think previously they had some shows lined up in London, but it was on New Year's Eve. I think they were doing New Year's Eve and New Year's Day or something like that. And they even said, like, we'll be playing New Year's Day, like at midnight, as the bells chime. That's when the band will start. Obviously with a family and kids and all the rest of it, I can hardly just go, yeah, I'm going to go up to London now and go watch a death metal band. That wouldn't have gone down too well. But I was lucky to see them in Nambucca a few months later. That's when this EP was released. So I just went and picked this up from the merchandise stand. And I even managed to nick one of the band's set lists. So there you go. If you can quickly read that, pause it and have a look for you. And I remember when they did Ashes, straight into Promulgation, straight into Serpent Skin. So that's the 3 tracks from Promulgation of the Fall. I said those songs seep together nicely, and there they are in the set, played one after the other. Vomit Christ, opening track from the first EP, and they closed with Teeth into Red. And oh god, that was so intense when they did that live. The way they just played that song perfectly perfectly in sync with each other. And then as the song closes, they just turned their back to the audience. The guitarist and the bass player and both guitarists just watched the drummer. The drummer watched them. They all just watched each other and waited for the Greek Orthodox priest to do their vocal part. Then it just went higher and higher, louder and louder. The voices projected. It just got, and it's for a minute. Heads down, the lights, just really good. The tension. You just knew the band were going to kick in any point, but They all just held it. And then bang for that last 30 seconds of just intense riffing. Oh, absolutely phenomenal. What a phenomenal live show. So glad I saw it. I got some flyers there. Again, such a tight, intense live experience. Oh, God. Let's have a look at that. Here you go. And yeah, I hope to see the band soon live again. And I really hope we get a new album from them. But yeah, so you've got a couple of EPs. I'm just trying to separate it all for you now. These are the EPs. The original demo. Part of the history. But the main two bulk of the back catalogue is the two albums. Which one's the best one to start with? Start with Grave of the Archangels because it is the first one. But I seriously struggle trying to decide which is the better one out. Both of these albums are absolutely perfect. And I think this is the best, some of the best death metal that was ever committed to tape. And yeah, this band are absolutely phenomenal. I love this band to the bottom of my little black heart. And yeah, I really look forward to hearing some new music from the band soon. If you are a fan of the band and you do want some new material from the band, here's something to tie you over. And this is a band, Embrace of Thorns, and this is an album called Praying for Absolution. And your main vocalist guitarist of the band actually plays guitar on this album. This is a black and death metal band, also from Greece. And yeah, not particularly. They don't really sound too much like Dead Congregation, but they're not a million miles away from them either. But they're pretty similar in terms of atmosphere, really. But yeah, if you in the mood for something new from Dead Congregation and you're a little bit fed up with waiting, this is a pretty cool album to tie you over in the meantime. And yeah, the main guy from Dead Congregation at least plays guitar on it, so that's well worth checking out. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. You made it to the end. Congratulations. If you enjoyed this, please help the channel out by just giving us one of them and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And yeah, share it around with your friends. But yeah, this is fantastic stuff. If you've not heard them, this is essential, guys. This is really, really important albums in the death metal canon. And like I say, this is a band that set the new standard going forward. Dead Congregation. Definitely check them out. And if you're into the band, check out the little EPs and all the bits in between if you haven't already. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this. Take care, everyone. And I hope to see you all soon. All the best. Take care.